Fun fact about me, I hate swimming. I absolutely hate swimming. Like I don't mind jumping in the water and splashing around or doing some jumps or even doing freestyle for a couple 100 meters or something like that. I don't mind that. But just swimming laps in a pool is like borderline torture for me. Yet, a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, I went in the pool 2 or 3 times a week, every single week, and spent at least a half hour in there just trudging lap after lap. Now, why do I hate swimming? One reason is it is so close to drowning. The way you have your head in is like just above the water, and half the time you end up getting a little bit of water in your lungs and you can't breathe properly. Lactic acid builds up and it just stays at this level of suck that is just terrible. Now, why did I do it so often if I hate it so much? Well, I had made a bet with my brother Derek that I could beat him in a triathlon. And so, I was determined that I was going to win that race. So my name is Al Westerman. I'm the youth pastor at Living Hope, and I want to thank you for coming on this journey with us as together we're going through the book of 1 Corinthians. Last week we were in 1 Corinthians 8, and we were talking about food sacrifice to idols, and what we learned from that was that we are to address the heart of the issue. We are to address the heart of the person. We are to care for that, and we are to want to see that part thrive. We're not to try to just win someone in an argument. We are to care for them as individuals. We find ourselves in a very similar place today. Now, I mentioned earlier that I hated swimming, but I actually love the triathlon because I love racing. I love competing in any form, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. But first, let's get to the text. So we find ourselves today in 1 Corinthians 9, and the first 18 verses of 1 Corinthians 9 talk about the rights of an apostle and how people who preach the gospel should be paid. So I love all that, but I'm not going to talk about it today. What I want to talk about is starting at verse 19. Though I am free and belong to no man, I make myself a slave to everyone, to win as many as possible. To the Jews I became like a Jew to win the Jews. To those under the law I became like one under the law, though I myself not under the law, so as to win those under the law. To those not having the law I became like one not having the law, though I am not free from God's law, but I am under Christ's law, so as to win those having the law. To the weak I became weak to win the weak. I have become all things to all men, so that by all possible means I might save some. I do all this for the sake of the gospel, that I may share in its blessings. Now, what I love about this is that Paul is saying that he is becoming all things to all people. Well, what does that mean? How does this apply to us? Does that mean that we become sinful for those who are sinful? Does that mean that we join in if someone is having drinking parties or something like that? Do we join in with that? I heard of someone I know before they died would actually go to strip clubs and try to evangelize in strip clubs. Am I recommending something like that? Becoming all things to all people? Well, no. I think the kind of training that Paul is talking about here, because right after that he talks about training as in a race. And so he says, don't you know that in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize. Run in such a way as to get the prize. So he talks later about not just running aimlessly. When I was swimming, I wasn't swimming aimlessly. I was swimming with a purpose. When you are striving with someone to win them for Christ, don't do it aimlessly. Do it purposefully. Learn what they like. Be interested, genuinely interested in what they like. If someone has a strong sense of right or wrong, talk about your sense of right or wrong. If someone is very interested in something that you don't know that much about, say photography, why not? Learn about it. It doesn't encourage us to break the rules. It doesn't encourage us to go outside of it, because if someone cheats in a race, they've cheated and they don't actually win that prize. Now, regarding racing, I used to race dirt biking, and there was this guy that I was around the same level as. We had a practice track at my parents' house and we would go racing maybe once a month, maybe once every other month. He, however, went every single weekend. So even though I was riding more and practicing more, he improved faster than I did, because nothing gets you ready for the real thing like the real thing. Putting yourself out there, being willing to make mistakes, is what accelerates you the absolute fastest. I have listened to lots of YouTube videos on evangelism, read studies, listened to sermons, all of this stuff, and they're helpful, but nothing has prepared me for talking to people about Jesus like talking to people about Jesus. Big shocker, I know. I want to encourage you to do the same. I want to encourage you to just talk to people. Think about their heart. Really consider the heart. Stay within the parameters that you're given. And be kind, be gracious, be loving. But don't be afraid to share the good things that Jesus has done for you. Now, once again, I love reading your comments. If you have any questions, I love to answer questions. If you have anything that stands out to you, or just anything you want to print, just put it in the comment section. Appreciate that, and I'll see you next week.